Hi, you guys. You're not used to the word hate coming from me, and that's only because I normally do not use it, except maybe every 1,000 years. But it's such a strong word, and it has such a strong connotation that for the majority of my life, I refuse to use it because it creates chaos, number one. And it is not something you want to implement in your life in any area of your life if you truly know the context of that word. So let's get into how I turned out hating the wrong guy. Embarrassing, yes, but let's talk about it. So at this particular time in my life, well, in all parts of my life, I'm always, optimistic, looking at life through rose colored glasses, giving everyone the benefit of the doubt normally until, they prove otherwise for me. But at this time, I worked at a very, I say all of my jobs were good jobs. So you guys are probably like, why did you leave any of them? But I really did. This was one of the best jobs that I had. And in one of my previous videos, when I talked about me working for a fund company, FUND, so mutual funds and things like that, it was one of the best companies that I worked at. And you guys, the people, all of my colleagues were, for the most part, really friendly, also optimistic. We and understood that we were, in good positions there and that, we were blessed to be at such a great company. Well, on this one particular day, it was a payday and we had gotten paid. So I was going to the bank to pull out a you know, few dollars um, from my account. And as I'm in line, I could see that there was a guy that also worked at my company. And we recognize each other through either the cafeteria, the restaurant downstairs, and the elevators, the hallways, corridors, going from place to place. So I didn't really like know him, but I knew that he worked at the company. So he was already at the teller, and I was going to be the next one in line. So as he was finishing up and walking out, I was walking up to the teller and he kind of looked behind him. And I said, "Hey, how are you?" And he was like, I'm fine. And I was like, okay, maybe he doesn't recognize me. So I said, "Don't you work at, you know, this fund company?" And he said, "Yes, I do." I said, "Oh, okay, I thought I recognized you." He was like, "Okay." And he walked out. So I was like, well, sometimes people have other things on their minds. Sometimes they're not looking to get distracted, especially if you're in a bank. If you're not looking for small conversation that would get started while you're trying to put your money away and that kind of thing. And sometimes people just are not having a good day. So I get that. I didn't think a lot of it, but I was kind of, let's just be honest, pissed. I was like, this guy act like he'd never seen me before. He acted like he was wondering why am I speaking to him? The hell. So I went on up to the teller and, conducted my business and did what I needed to do. And then I had gotten back to work and, still a little like, what was that about? Because I didn't know him well enough for him to be mad at me about anything. So I was like, okay, strange, but okay. Well, about 2 or 3 days later, I see the guy, friendly as hell. Hey, how are you doing? And you know how sometimes we say we give tit for tat? And I'm thinking to myself, now I'm going to let him see what it feels like to get the cold shoulder. I looked up and I said, I'm fine. And then I looked right back at my computer and he was like taken aback. And then I'm thinking to myself, he has a lot of dang on nerve. Now he wants to, act like he knows me, which was just weird. But again, like I said, maybe, he's feeling in a better mood or whatever. But for me, I don't make excuses for the negative behavior that someone gives to me. And like I said, I do understand that sometimes, it bees like that. But, I don't subject myself or put myself in a position where they'll have the opportunity to do that again. Let's say that. So, a couple of more times later on that week or so, that month, he would make a point to say hi because they were, like I said, used to me being, positive, optimistic, seeing life through rose-colored glasses. But at this point, I was like, I don't want to have anything else to do with this knucklehead. And so whenever he would say hi or anything, I would give him a very stiff hello and then get right back to whatever the heck I was doing. So probably 8 months to a year had passed. Yeah. Let me say something up front. I don't hold grudges. I don't get revenge. I just done with you. So it's not like every time I saw him, I was like, I can't wait for him to speak to me so I can give him the cold shoulder. No, that wasn't it. My thing was when I'm done with you, I'm done with you, and you'll know it. So flash forward, it's about 8 or 9 months later, and this colleague came over to my desk, a female friend. And she was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And I was like, "Oh, everything's good." We're sitting there talking and everything. And then this guy walks past and she says, "Hey," she said something to him like, "Hey, how are you doing?" or something. And he saw her sitting there talking with me. He said, "Oh, I'm good." And he looked at her and looked at me and he walked on by, which was fine with me. I was like, when we don't have to communicate, we don't have to do that. So she looks at me and she says, "What was that about?" And I said, "Girl, about 8 or 9 months ago, we happened to be at the bank, getting some money out on payday." I said, and I said hello to him, and he acted like he didn't know me. And she said, "What? He wouldn't do that." I said, "Yeah, that was the same thing I thought." I said, "He was like, 'Why are you talking to me?' 'Yes, I do work there. Bye, Heather." And she was like, "That is really strange." And I said, "I mean, it's no big deal. I mean, if that's the way he wants to be, I'm fine with that." I said, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make money. Okay. So no, again, no big deal. I'm not even thinking about this whole thing. And then I want to say like 2 hours or so later, like during her lunchtime, she brought the guy over to my desk and she brought this other guy over to my desk. And you guys, they both looked alike. And you guessed that I had the wrong guy. Shit. So I was like, oh, uh-oh. So she was like, and she had kind of put it together because what she had done is gone and asked the initial guy. She said, "Yeah, Sherry said she saw you in the bank and da da da." He said, "That's not my bank." She said, "What?" She said, "Why would she lie?" He said, "I'm not calling her a liar. I'm telling her she didn't see me." So this girl who knew both of them put it together and she was like, "Oh, you know what? So and so does kind of look like you, and people do get you guys mixed up." So she had them over at my desk. Ah, yeah, big egg on face. So I was like, so she introduced the one who I saw at the bank, and he smiled and he laughed. He said, "I'm so sorry." He said, "I didn't know who you were or anything, and when you were speaking to me, I was like, why is this lady talking to me in the bank? What, and why does she know where I live? I mean, where I work?" So I, first of all, I thanked her for bringing them both over to my desk, so that way you can't say they really are the same person. People say Michael Jackson and Janet Jackson are the same person, and then they both on the same stage at the same time going, "See, we're not." So for the other guy, I profu- I apologize profusely because I'm like, I've been mad at you for a whole year. And he said, "I was wondering what was going on." He said, "I was asking people, why you were acting that way." And everyone's like, "That's not like her." And I was like, "That's like her with me." And I was just so, so embarrassed. But you know what my big lesson was? And this whole thing, and hopefully it'll be a lesson for some of you out there. You know how they say hating someone is like poisoning yourself. No, it's like poisoning yourself and then hoping the other person dies. So for this whole 8.5 months or a year, I'm upset every time I see this guy. He's going on about his business. And so is the other one who I should have been upset with, but not really should have been upset with him either. But So every time I see this guy, I'm tightening up. I'm making sure I give curt responses. I'm not saying hello, not meeting him where he's currently at, where he's trying to be friendly, and I'm getting upset all over again. It was the whole thing for the whole 9, 10, 11 months. And all of that was unnecessary, especially since it was targeted at the wrong person. So I could have been happy, cheerful at work every time I saw him, or I could be, that's the guy that didn't speak to me at the bank. What the hell? So, again, this is Jerry. This is Life Lessons Learned. You guys already know knowledge is in the knowing. Had I known I had the wrong person, that would have really been some good knowledge for me. But wisdom is in the doing. And the true learning of a lesson is the application of it. And so I really should have 8, 9 months ago just let that go. Okay, so someone didn't speak to you in the bank at one point in your life. Really? Are you going to let that rule the rest of the time you're here at this great place that we work at, great colleagues, great benefits, and be upset? So, yeah, that was a real eye opener for me. And actually, to be honest with all of you guys, that lesson there taught me in my life, whether it was personally, professionally, sometimes even spiritually, to just let go of that negative and don't allow it to rule you or ruin you. So, this is again Life Lessons Learned. Thank you to my wisdom walkers who continue to return to my channel. For those of you who are new, I certainly welcome you. I also welcome your comments. Please share times that you may have sent darts out to someone that it didn't deserve it, or for some misunderstanding or miscommunication, you were able to get through and realize that all is not what it appeared to be. So leave your comments. I thank you. For those of you who are so inclined, please subscribe and continue to come back to my videos. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.